Let's make a custom liner for an Easter basket. In this project, I'll share tips on how to custom fit your project to your basket and sample some new Embroidery.com Easter designs in the process. My first step is to measure the basket's dimensions. If, like mine, your basket is woven, it probably has a thickness to it, so take measurements for both the inside and the outside. The inside measurements will be smaller than the outside measurements. There's also a pitch to the sides of my basket. Since the liner I'm making will hang over the side and not cling tightly to it, I'll measure the distance from the top of the basket straight down to the table it rests on, rather than measuring the slope. This basket liner will be given extra structure and padding with the use of a fabric craft insert. So for each of the basket sides to be covered, I'll create a pattern for tracing on the insert material. It's helpful to make note of the use and number needed for each pattern piece. Using the patterns, mark each insert piece and cut it out. The stiffener I'm using here is an embroidery product called Stitch and Shape. I'll also create patterns for each piece of covering fabric needed. To assist me with drawing the curved pieces, I lay the basket down and trace the curve on the pattern. Using the basket measurements I've taken and the traced line, I'll draw in cleaner lines for the pattern piece. Next, I add a 1/4 inch seam allowance on all sides of each piece, and since my basket also has a fairly thick lip on top, I'll add a 1/2 inch to the outside flat pieces to accommodate their drape across that thick edge. I test my pattern by creating a mock-up of this project with extra material. This way, I can decide how to construct the final project and catch any flaws in my original design. Here, you can see I needed to add a notch to the outside pieces so that they'll better fit around the handles. With pattern pieces pinned to the fabric, cut the panels needed. For this liner design, I need 2 pieces for each of the basket's inner walls, 2 for each of the outside walls, and 2 for the bottom of the basket. Next, I create the embroidery layout, deciding where each design will fit on the panels. I'll be adding embroidery to all of the outside panels and to most of the inside areas as well. On the fabric pieces for the final basket liner, mark the placement of each design to be embroidered. If some of your panels include an allowance for a wide lip of a basket, like mine do, measure the center of the panel with that allowance subtracted. The designs I've chosen come from the new Easter Bunnies design set by Embroidery Central. Once the embroidery is finished, the construction can begin. While stitching my mock-up, I decided to assemble the outermost pockets first and then the entire top side of the liner. I follow the 1/4 inch seam allowance rule and stitch right sides together. Adding the inner pockets for each stiffener piece seems tricky at first, but keep in mind that Stitch and Shape is flexible, so it can be curled somewhat for insertion. Make room for the inserts to really fit well by trimming the seam allowance. Turn each pocket right side out. Once the pockets are created, insert the pre-cut stiffener. As you finish the underside of the liner and close the remaining pocket edges, a mini iron is a handy tool for pressing the seams as you go. For an extra embellishment, make a handle ornament by embroidering the balloon bunny directly on the Stitch and Shape. When you cut it out, include a strip long enough to overlap around the basket handle. Now that the liner is finished, just drop it into the basket. I've added snaps to the balloon bunny handle ornament for easy attaching and removal. This lift-out liner dresses up the basket for Easter, and when the holiday's over, you simply undress the basket and return it to normal use.